you've just raised a Series A funding. Can you explain what that process was like, and do you have any advice to share for other entrepreneurs who are in the process of raising funds?
A lot of these people were like, "Hey, Brian, I love what you're doing. And as soon as I close my fund in 9 months, I'd love to write a check." But, we had to go do it the old fashioned way, which is really local funding.
Mhm.
Um, and we're in Memphis, Tennessee. And if you look at funding for startups in the US, and these are real numbers, 80% of all venture dollars go to deals in the San Francisco Bay Area. So now
Wow.
you got 20% that's left spread out over, Boston, New York, Washington, DC and Washington State, Seattle. So, very little. I mean, like 1 to 2% of those dollars are left for people in the middle of the country. So it's hard.
Mhm.
But we were very lucky that we had an ag tech fund here in town that's really moving from technologies that they sell to farmers to what can we do with the ag tech stuff, waste products, et cetera, that they're producing to commercialize those for new products. And they got excited about us and invested in us. And then we had a couple of very high net worth individuals here in town that also got excited about the fact that we were doing clean tech in Memphis,
Mhm.
and that we've had a good solid team of people that had experience in doing this. So we were able to raise most of those funds locally. But we did actually take a pause. We raised 2 million of that by September of last year, and we took a pause on raising money locally to see if we could get some of these other guys out there.
Yeah.
And I talked to 147 venture funds
Wow.
globally,
Wow.
and got one of those to invest. And so it's the Goldilocks principle.
Amazing.
Again, you're either too small, too big, too early, too late. A lot of those guys were international, and they sought us out because of our green tech experience. But because of COVID, we weren't really doing anything internationally because we're all kind of stuck where we were.
Mhm.
So those are actually, some of those guys are going to be great fits for when we raise the next round, which will be for international expansion.
Mhm.
So I think that's another lesson is you never stop raising money. So I'd say a good third of the people we talk to already are probably they're going to be the first calls I make when we go to raise the next fund,
Mhm.
because they already know the deal. They've had a chance to see us go from nothing to something.
Mhm.
They've seen us get our first customers. They've seen us get our patents. They've seen us get the production capability, get the plant up and operational. They've seen us be successful at accomplishing the day-to-day blocking and tackling. And then we go back to them and say, okay, now we're ready to go internationally. Then I think we'll see some of those guys go, yeah, love what you're doing, great. We want to be a part of this. So, I think the other lesson that you never write those guys off.
Yeah.
They're once you've got, and really also those people move around.
Mm.
And we've already had this happen where, we had somebody who was at one venture fund, left that venture fund to go to another venture fund, and brought us into that other venture fund to pitch. So, you just never know where these things are going to, where these trails are going to lead you.
Yeah.
But it's dogged determination, and just you got to just keep plugging away at it. And like any sales activity, it's a numbers game.
Wow.
You're not going to make one pitch and everybody goes, wow, that's great. Here's all the money you'd ever need. That's just, I've not seen that happen yet. It's just, you just gotta every day keep chipping away at it, and then eventually you get there. Now, so we're now oversubscribed in this round, and we got there because, you know, a lot of the people that were on the fence were waiting to see the factory up and operational. Got that in March. Then they were waiting for customer traction. Where are the customers? We just got our first big order, which is a $400,000 order for this year, which is probably about a $2.5 million recurring revenue order, which is another neat thing about this business is once people use our product, they got to keep buying it. They got to keep refreshing their filters.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a recurring revenue model, and we've gotten those first customers. And so, you know, as you sort of tick the boxes that they want to see ticked.
I mean, that's the best revenue model in my opinion, because it just takes a lot of work out of the sales.
Yeah.
Once you've got the first customers on board. So this discussion actually leads me to a question that I wanted to ask, because you mentioned infrastructure and innovation and how it's been very slow to change. And I know that anything infrastructure related is typically very, very slow to change, but extremely important, because that's where, you know, we get our energy, our water, and all the things that we all need to live. So were there any roadblocks to actually using your innovation? Like, were there any ways in which you didn't fit in with current infrastructure, where you had to find some kind of solution or a way around it? How does it fit in with the current water system?
Great question. There are really three markets in the water industry: the industrial, the residential, and the municipal. So we've completely avoided we're not doing anything in the municipal market in the US at all, because just as you said, they're slow to move. And as we talked about, they're really hesitant to innovate because of risk factors. So I'll give you a perfect example of why we backed away from that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's attractive market because they're huge volume users of filtration media. They buy tons and tons and tons of this stuff. Great customers. So there was a small municipality in Missouri that was really looking to shift to a green. There's our guy again.
It's getting a little. I can hear that now. So let's put a little pause just in time. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. They come once a month, and today's the day. So sorry. But so there was this municipality up in Missouri that really wanted to move to green technology. They had metal in their water that they needed to get removed. They had chromium, hexavalent chromium, which we can remove. And today they're using, you know, an ion exchange resin product to do that, which is a petroleum-based microplastic. It's nasty stuff. We need to stop using that. And they wanted to stop using that. So they said, great, come on in, pitch us for this. And we got all excited. And we got up there and we did it. And they're like, this is great, this is wonderful. So we want to bring in our consultants. So they brought in an industry consultant, very well known. Everybody knows who these guys are, industry consultant in the water space. And we gave our pitch to them, and they're like, oh, this is great. This is fantastic stuff. We love this. Great. So thank you very much. And we're like, well, so what's the next step? And they're like, oh, well, we would never recommend you to come into a municipality until you had been operational in situ at scale for at least 3 to 5 years. So come back when you've been doing this, you know, in some major plant for 3 to 5 years, and then we'll talk about it. I'm like, well, what? But you know, that was it. They don't take risks. They're not going to recommend taking any risks, and that was it. That was the end of it. So we said, all right. Yeah. So we said, all right, no more municipal. Let's focus on the industrial and the residential.
Mm.
And the industrial side, every big company today is using water somewhere in their process, either to clean up or, how they're using it somewhere in their process. And they need to treat it before they can discharge it. And what's really starting to happen is a lot of these big companies who all have chief sustainability officers are saying, well, why are we discharging this water? Why aren't we just reusing this water? Why do we need to pump it out of the ground?
Yeah.
And so they're really interested in green, sustainable. They're very interested in getting away from microplastics. And so
I mean,
that's a big
you're doing them a service, actually,
absolutely.
that goes beyond just what they're going to be doing with their water, in the sense that every company now is concerned about its green credentials.
Right. So and we're going to be we're going to be also there will be carbon credits available for use of this technology. We're in the process of going through that LCA right now, and there's again, there are other companies out there that have done biochar that have already gotten theirs approved. So and Microsoft, which just bought $1 million worth of carbon credits, all of those were from a biochar. So there's no issue about whether we're going to get it or not. It's just a question of what does it say on the LCA and what is the value and all that. So we're starting that process right now, and we intend to make those available to our industrial clients as sort of a rebate, so they can be doubly green in all of this. We're just going to give them the carbon credits so that they can use that to reduce their carbon footprint. So again, industrial market, no certification required there. There's a lot of things that they like about what we're doing there. Now, on the residential market, the Brita filters, the carbon block filters like this for whole home, that requires certification. So in the United States, it's called an NSF certification, which is the National Safety Foundation. EU has similar. I'm sure UK has their own entity that does that. And so that's a process. So before we can really sell into that market, we have to get our NSF certification. And we're about halfway through that process. We've gone through the first step. The first step is your chemistry compliance. And what they do there is they look at your product and they run it through some pretty exhaustive testing to see, do you leach anything toxic into the water, and can you filter to EPA drinking water standards? And we've passed those two. So we've gotten our compliance letter saying that we're good on the chemistry side. The second step is an audit on our manufacturing process to make sure that this is reproducible and that we can manufacture this with a constant quality. And we're in the middle of doing that right now. Hope to have that done by July. So this fall we will be into the residential market in a big way. Because as I said, whether it's a carbon block filter on your refrigerator, a whole home filter like I just showed, or in a Brita or other pitcher filtration systems like that, all of these guys want to get to green, sustainable filtration products, and we can deliver that. So that's I think going to be, those two will be our first two big markets, and those people are looking for innovation. They're looking for green products.
I mean, the size of your market is huge.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, it's I just have to say one thing about this though, which is when you go internationally, we get a lot more interest from the municipalities internationally because they're under mandates to look for green solutions in the municipal water and circular economy products to be used in these municipal water supply technologies. And so the second we can get there, which I hope will be next year, I think we'll see a very quick uptake and adoption from international municipalities.